A wealthy husband and a mansion are mine for the taking, huh? In return, I'll introduce you to my ex, lol.
Ale whispered in my ear, drawing her face close to mine quietly. Plain Jen doesn't suit wealth or mansions. Just get out already. I stopped breathing without realizing it, causing a tightness in my chest. I'm gasping for air, breathing heavily through my shoulders. Get out. What? I couldn't speak properly, my breath erratic. Ale laughed loudly at this. Oh no, Jen. Don't cry. Sorry, Jen. But I've decided to live my life with Ali now. Mike, with no mercy, thrust the completed divorce papers at me, who was on the verge of hyperventilating. I was betrayed by both my husband and my sister. Receiving them, I felt even more suffocated, crouching down and clutching my stomach. Ha, ha, ha. I could feel the stinging gaze of Ali and Mike. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Ha, ah, ah. I lifted my face, which had been downcast, and let out the laughter I had been suppressing. There's no way I would cry. The ones who will be crying are Ali and Mike. I am Jen. A housewife in her 40s. Recently, I got married for the second time. My husband's name is Mike. He's a man 2 years my senior. He used to be a tenant in the apartment I own. While cleaning the apartments, he would always say, "Thank you for your hard work." Gradually, we started making small talk and eventually started dating. I totally thought you were just a housewife working a cleaning part-time job. I am already in my 40s. It's understandable people thought that way, as I only pulled back my black hair and didn't dress up. When I found out you were the landlord, I was really surprised. Mike was busy working and always investing as a hobby, and before he knew it, he had missed his chance to marry. I also had a thing for investing, which brought us together naturally. It led to marriage. Mike always praises everything about my investment talks as amazing. Not just that, when I make a simple meal, he's moved to say delicious, and when I massage his shoulders, he seems almost to melt with joy. He's older but has this pure, somewhat childlike side to him. I'm not at an age where I yearn to wear a wedding dress for a second time, so we didn't have a wedding ceremony, much to the first-timer Mike's dismay. Instead, our new home was in a high-rise condo, as Mike wished. Wow, what a view! Even though it's only on the 5th floor. Mike looked out over the city, his eyes sparkling. Living here, just the two of us, this room is so spacious, it's incredibly luxurious. How many times bigger than my old apartment, I wonder? Mike was bubbling with excitement, his honest nature never hinting that he would do a complete 180. I couldn't have imagined it at that time. The trigger was inviting a colleague of Mike to our home. Wow, incredible! My colleague, Mr. Brown, stood frozen in the middle of the room, mouth agape. Is this Mike's place? Looks like a hotel. I've never stayed in such a fancy hotel. Shocked? It's really something, huh? Encouraged by a proud Mike, Mr. Brown cautiously sat down on the leather sofa. My wife told me to bring this. Handed a sponge cake by Mr. Brown, Mike showed a puzzled smile. Thanks. This is like those $10 cakes you often find near the service counter at the supermarket. No need to say it in such a snide way. Mr. Brown shrank a bit, uncomfortable. Thank you for the cake. I really like it. Trying to change the atmosphere, I cheerfully offered Mr. Brown a cup of coffee. Thanks. Relieved, Mr. Brown took a sip of the coffee. Before, Mike would never join for drinks, and his lunches were either instant noodles or half-price tagged meals. He wouldn't even buy drinks from a vending machine, always so thrifty. So, to think he got married and moved into a high-rise apartment. I couldn't believe it. Man, you're incredible. Way to go. Well, you know. Mike lifted his chin and puffed out his chest. Who are those guys who said I'd never get married? No one's laughing at me at the office now, right? Sorry, man. Your wife is lucky. Mike and Mr. Brown were joking around. I was a bit put off by Mike's attitude, but maybe this is just how men talk.
Mr. Brown lowered his voice and added, "But your place is luxurious, yet your wife is quite plain."
Well, you lost there. I'm not superficial like you. It's normal for a guy in his 40s like me to marry a woman in her 40s, right? A young, pretty wife, that's stuff of comics. I was astounded. They both seemed to laugh it off without malice. Hey! This high-rise has its own gym and bars, not the cheap pubs you guys go to. Really fancy places. Should I treat you to a drink? With that, Mike and Mr. Brown headed to the apartment's bar. In front of his colleague, Mike was getting carried away. Just for today. Only for now. But after that day, Mike began to act more arrogantly. You went to that cheap supermarket again, didn't you? We're supposed to be upscale, right? Stop embarrassing me. Checking my purchases and receipts, Mike frowned in annoyance. What bothered me most was Mike's evening drink. He always sat by the window, drinking while looking down. The cars look like toys. People are so tiny from up here. Unaware they're being looked down upon, they continue to work in the lower world. Mike had completely changed. The days of buying discounted vegetables from a cheap supermarket and making dinner together seemed like a distant past. I was starting to feel uneasy about Mike. Then one day, returning home, I found unfamiliar high heels at the entrance. I swallowed nervously. Could it be Mike brought a woman home? Listening closely, I heard laughter from a man and a woman coming from the living room. Despite the lack of heat, my palms were sweating. Like a thief, I tiptoed down the hallway. Peeking into the living room, a curly-haired woman noticed me and raised her hand. Jen. Welcome home. Sis? My tension instantly dissolved. It was Ally, my sister, who was drinking with Mike. The relief was short-lived, as doubts began to surface. Why? I had informed my mother about my marriage, but I hadn't disclosed our new address. It seems Ally heard about the marriage from our mother, but I never imagined she would show up at our house. Since you're married now, you should have told me. I'm your big sister, right? Let me at least celebrate your marriage. Ally, already drunk, leaned on Mike's shoulder. Apparently, Mike had accidentally revealed our new address to my mother when greeting her. I really didn't want to tell. I had warned Mike beforehand that my family and I weren't on good terms. But, when your spouse's mother asks where are you living, it's natural to answer honestly. However, my mother's question where are you living wasn't just small talk. She probably just wanted material to look down on me. She must have laughed behind my back, calling it a ridiculous lie that our new place was in a high-rise luxury building. Wow, I'm shocked. Living in an actual high-rise luxury building, huh? What can I say, it feels so grand. Despite being an apartment, it's so spacious, like a mansion. Totally different from our old apartment back home. Well, yeah, this is the quality of a high-rise for you. Lucky you. Jen, that's amazing. I'm so jealous. While saying this, Ally kept touching Mike's arms and thighs. Mike's grin grew wider with her blatant physical contact. Jen, you've really moved up from being the fast food wife, huh? Mike, with his simian grin, suddenly looked puzzled. Huh? Mike, didn't you know? Jen's ex-husband was a fast food joint part-timer. Jen used to visit that fast food place a lot, you know? Their meeting wasn't exactly a high school romance, if you get what I mean. A fast food job. I can't believe she married someone with such a high schooler's job. Her ex-husband was like a nobody. Yeah, really. Mom and I were so worried, we were against the marriage. But she was like, I love him. I'm going to marry him, playing the tragic heroine. She went ahead and registered the marriage without telling anyone, and then went MIA. They laughed heartily, chugging their beers. Being mocked over my ex-husband, Sam, felt like a tight grip on my brain. I wanted to stop the conversation immediately, but I couldn't move. And then, about 5 or 6 years into the marriage, that husband of hers just dropped dead. Straight to heaven. Poor Jen, really. She didn't listen to our advice, married some inexplicable guy, and just look how it turned out. At that moment, I raised my hand high. Ah! I snapped back to reality at Ally's scream. My palm was trembling above her head. Scary. You were about to hit me just now, weren't you? Ally, with her eyes widened, blinked slowly. Then, as if flipping a switch, she became meek and slumped against Mike's shoulder. That was scary. A chill ran down my spine at Ally's whiny voice. Jen! What were you about to do to your own family? Mike yelled at me, and I clenched my trembling hand. I'm sorry, but it's because of her. Shut up! You're going to make excuses after making your own sister cry? I thought you were kind, but I was wrong. Ally's sobbing mouth showed her white teeth. Her excessively red, vulgar lips were definitely laughing. Mike gently stroked her stiff, curly hair. Unaware that she was laughing inside his arms, he embraced her tenderly. But being badmouthed about Sam who passed away. What? You still have feelings for your ex-husband? Mike wouldn't even listen to me. That was the moment a complete rift formed between us. It's always like this. My family looks down on me, making me the butt of their jokes. That's why I wanted to keep my distance. Everyone in my family, from my mother to my late father, was always about looks, always the picture of perfection. In contrast, I was often told by my mother, don't worry. Once you're an adult, you can undergo plastic surgery. While Ally enjoyed a life of fashion and dating, I dedicated myself to studying. I did it because my mother would praise me whenever I scored 100 on a test. But after scoring 103 times in a row, it became expected, and I'd get scolded for missing even a single point. Jen, you're so good at studying. I'm so proud to have such a smart sister. I brag to my friends that you're studying hard now for your future plastic surgery costs. I was often ridiculed by Ally, who may not have been academic but was certainly more glamorous. Even now, as an adult, do I have to be laughed at by my family? I can't even defend the late Sam when he's spoken ill of. Worse still, I was infuriated when Mike joined in laughing and blaming me. A week has passed since then, but the relationship between my husband and I remains strained. Mike used to love living in our high-rise condo, but lately, he's been coming home late. He probably doesn't want to see me. Avoiding our bedroom, Mike sluggishly retreats to another room. In this large house, we can hardly sense each other's presence. It feels like the emotional distance between us is growing wider. Something must change. With that resolve, the next day when Mike came home from work, I took a leap and spoke up. Mike, it's cold today. How about, if you'd like, we have hot pot together? Mike, who was about to head straight to his room, glanced briefly at the dining table. Steam rose from the clay pot, spreading the gentle aroma of the broth. Huh. His response was cold. Hot pot? I don't want to eat something so plebeian. If you want to please me, serve something like caviar or foie gras. Despite never having them, Mike shrugged with disdain. Then, he looked me up and down, letting out a deep sigh. Huh. Not you. My mistake. With those words, Mike vanished into the room. Mistaken. I was soon to learn the meaning of that word. Welcome home. One day, as I returned, I was greeted by Ally at the entrance. Ally was unusually cheerful, scattering smiles all around. Behind her stood Mike, scratching his head and smirking. Ally and Mike looked both pleased and embarrassed, as if they had something to say but hesitated. What's up? Have you been drinking and talking smack about me and Sam again? Oh, stop with your paranoid fantasies. As I moved to take off my shoes, Ally stopped me with wait. Sorry, but can you not come into the house anymore? What? How should I say this? Right, Mike? Oh, yeah. Ally, you tell her. Like a pair of bashful new lovers, Ally and Mike were awkward. Well, the thing is, we've fallen in love. What? In front of a flailing Ally, I could only respond flatly. Ally was no high school girl. She was a woman in her 40s, already marked with smile lines. For some reason, I felt embarrassed. Jen, you're still hung up on your ex, aren't you? It hurt me, you know. So, I guess it's only natural that I've started to fall for Ally, right? Huh? I nodded, though I couldn't really understand. Jen, I'm really sorry. Her apology lacked any real emotion. Ally clasped her hands in front of her chest, puckered her lips, and tilted her head. She leaned in close to me and whispered in my ear.
The wealthy husband and the mansion are mine now, lol. As a thank you, I'll introduce you to my ex, lol.
The intense smell of air freshener gave me a headache. Her bright red lips barely touched my ear, sending shivers down my spine. It's okay, really. Don't worry. He's just a part-timer, too. You like those loser types, don't you, Jen? A plain Jane like you doesn't suit a rich man or a mansion. Just get out. Ally finally stepped away after breathing her foul breath on me. I was completely frozen. Ally crossed her arms with satisfaction, puffing out her chest. Get out. I had been holding my breath without realizing it, and my chest hurt. I gasped for air. Get out. Ha, ha. Ha. I was so out of breath I couldn't speak properly. Ally burst into loud laughter at this. No, Jen, don't cry. Poor Jen. Sorry, Jen. But I decided to move on with Ally. Mike mercilessly handed me the completed divorce papers, just as I felt like I might hyperventilate. Taking them, I felt even worse and crouched down, clutching my stomach. Ha, ha, ha. Ha. I could feel the painful gaze of Ally and Mike. I couldn't stand it any longer. Ha, ha, ha. I lifted my face, which had been downcast, and let out a burst of laughter I had been suppressing. Ah ha ha. What have you been saying all this time? Why should I be the one to leave? My sudden outburst must have seemed crazy. Ally contorted her face and took a step back. But the property is all in my name? I said, wiping the tears from the corners of my eyes. Ally furrowed her brows skeptically, while Mike gave a slight smile. Huh? Do you even understand what being handed those divorce papers means? Mike and you're divorcing, right? This place is for me and Mike now, so the nuisance should disappear. It seemed my ramblings were taken as the words of a madwoman. The house was already filled with Ally's scent. Looking behind her, I saw a pair of crumpled tights thrown on the living room floor. I realized there was no place for me here anymore. Clinging to a house that reeked of Ally seemed ridiculous. Maybe we should just move to another house? No way. I've really taken a liking to this high-rise condo. Mike smiled contentedly, enticing Ally. It seemed he was up to something, but it was none of my concern anymore. Fine. I'll leave, do as you wish. Ally, grinning broadly, stated confidently. You're so understanding, that helps a lot. So, Mike and I will live in this high-rise condo. Don't come back later with complaints, okay? Sure, by all means, be happy. Then, I packed my belongings into a single Boston bag and left the room where I was supposed to have lived a happy married life with Mike. A few days later, as I was returning from the convenience store, I ran into Ally and Mike right at the entrance of the apartment complex. You're still loitering around the building? Creepy, just get out of here. No way, you don't have anywhere to go and you're sleeping in this entrance? Oh, that's so sad. Having a homeless person in the entrance of a luxury high-rise? Give me a break. Making unwarranted assumptions, the two of them pity me. I ignore them and head for the elevator. What? You want to pick up some belongings? No way. If drab and poor-looking Jen enters, she'll pollute the air. I'll send it to you COD, just don't come into my house. Which park should I send it to? Or maybe a station? Ally and Mike follow me like annoying tagalongs as I walk briskly. Just as I am about to press the elevator button, Mike frantically stops me. Hey, Jen. That's the elevator for the upper floors, right? Are you out of your mind? Shocked from being dumped by Mike, huh? Became senile? Oh, right. Good thing we left that senile old person behind. No way I'm dealing with that. Undeterred, I pressed the elevator button. Hey, no mischief from the homeless. That's disrespectful to the high-rise elites. As I step into the elevator, Ally and Mike look at each other and widen their eyes. They slip into the elevator just as the doors are about to close. For Mike, it's his first time in the high-rise elevator, so he's as excited as if he's on an amusement park ride. Then, the elevator stops on the top floor. Hey, this isn't right. This is no place for a homeless person. Stop it. You'll get us in trouble with the real elites, you know? Not my fault. While trying to stop me, Ally and Mike curiously look around. Still ignoring them, I open the door to the room in front of me. Ah! Entering someone's house without permission. I glance at them and enter the room. Mike, flustered, reaches for the entrance door just as it's closing. He slowly pulls the door and steps into the room on the top floor of the high-rise. Hey, Jen. Eh? What do we do? Do we go in? After a moment of hesitation at the entrance, the two of them cautiously move forward, tiptoeing through the hallway. Wow! Arriving in the living room, Mike can't help but exclaim. The room, with its walls of glass, offers a panoramic view of the city. It's nothing like the 5th floor. Hey, you, why? Sitting comfortably on the sofa, I finally meet Ally and Mike's eyes. Why? Because this is my home. Ally and Mike's mouths drop open. Their jaws almost dislocate. I was suddenly kicked out, so I had no choice but to move to this room on the top floor. Oh, right. The remaining stuff, you were going to send COD, right? Please send it to this room. They seem about to scream, but they just open and close their mouths. Why? Because it's my home. How many more times do they want me to say this is my home? The title is all in my name, right? The room you're living in, this room, they're all mine. Huh? Why? I didn't know you owned the top floor too. You tricked me? I thought your best place was that 5th floor. Mike, who had been living in my apartment until we got married. He asked which was the best property I owned, wanting to live in the highest grade room. I didn't trick you. The person living here on the top floor just moved out recently. Haha. You're kidding, right? No way, the top floor. I'm on the 5th floor, and Jen's on the top. No way, that's ridiculous. Jen of all people. Mike grimaced, scratching his head vigorously. Ally, are we really okay living on the 5th floor? Being below Jen? Let's move to a higher apartment than this one. Yeah, let's move, Mike. We should aim for an apartment that doesn't just see the Empire State Building, but looks down on it. The two joined hands, their eyes sparkling with visions of a splendid future. Right. So, Ally, do you have an apartment higher than this? Huh? No, of course not. I see, that's a shame. Then, let's just buy or rent as usual. Ally, please take care of it. Huh? What? Eh? Where did that previous sparkle go? Puzzled, the two froze. Hey, I've been kind of confused since earlier. What do you mean Jen owns the house? Is this place really Jen's? Ally asked with a strained smile. Yeah, well. Ha, so presumptuous for Jen. Worked hard studying just to get plastic surgery, but ended up buying a high-rise without spending on surgery? No, that's not it but. Ah. I get it. Loans. It's about loans, right? With a loan, you can buy anything expensive, right? Oh, so that's the trick. Don't scare me like that. Ally nodded to herself, convinced, crossing her arms. But, you can't beat Mike, can you? He owns several units on the 2nd and 3rd floors of this high-rise, not to mention lots of other land and apartments. He's in a different league from Jen. Mike awkwardly closed his mouth, averting his eyes. But all of that is mine too. Because I own the whole building of this high-rise. What? But, Mike, you said it was yours. Ally's pleading gaze turned to Mike. She had been confident about the Mike she knew, but the real Mike before her was pale, with a distorted face. Mike! Everything Jen said is a lie, right? No, that is, it's ours, as a couple. Mike mumbled, his words unclear, but I spoke up clearly in his place. It seems you have been flaunting properties in my name as if they were your own to Ally. What a pitiful man. Lies! Lies! The one lying is Mike. Ally collapsed on the spot, overwhelmed by shock. For Jen, this is a lie. Mike, feeling uncomfortable, offered a strained smile and muttered sorry. A straightforward apology, but it hardly reached the dazed Ally. Unable to bear the heavy atmosphere, Mike began to laugh weakly. Sorry. I own nothing. But my feelings for you, Ally, are real. I will always support you by your side. Mike. Ally's cheeks turned slightly red. Love over money? No way, that's impossible. So, Ally, how much do you own? Huh? Own what? Eh? Land, apartments. What? I own nothing like that. Eh? Eh? Why? Ally and Mike, eyebrows raising and lowering, made pitifully confused faces. Ally, you're more favored by your parents than someone like Jen, so you should naturally have more, right? What happened to the apartment you inherited from your dad? Inheritance? What are you talking about? Could it be you messed up and lost all the apartments you got? What are you talking about? Ally yelled, and finally, the two fell silent. They glared at each other as if in a staring contest, eyes wide, mouths turned down, teeth bared, showcasing an array of amusing expressions. Ha ha ha. In this staring contest, I admit defeat. Mike, it seems you've misunderstood. The reason I own so many apartments and lands is indeed due to inheritance. But hard work alone couldn't buy me 1 or 2 skyscrapers. However, it wasn't inherited from my father. Ally and Mike, prone to jumping to conclusions, swallowed hard. I inherited it from Sam. Ally looked momentarily puzzled but soon burst into laughter. Sam, as in the guy from the fast food? That's right. But he wasn't just some guy working there. When I decided to marry Sam, I explained it to my family. It's true we met at the diner, but Sam was no ordinary employee. He was the owner of the land on which the diner stood. How such a twisted interpretation led them to believe he was a mere employee, I'll never understand. No matter how much I corrected them, they just laughed, sure. A grown man working part-time. Sam comes from a long line of landowners, a real tycoon. When I put it plainly, Ally's eyes looked like they might pop out. He was wealthy enough that he didn't need to work a day in his life. In reality, Sam was a diligent worker, and I didn't quit my job just because I married him. We could have lived leisurely, but chose not to, which is why the fortune remained intact. Moreover, I studied investment and nearly doubled the fortune I inherited from Sam. Mike's lips trembled. I knew you inherited something, as Jen said, but why an ex-husband? I thought it was from Jen's father. Inheritance usually comes from parents, right? So, I assumed Ally, being more beloved, would have a larger fortune. If we're talking wealth, choosing the glamorous Ally over plain Jen seemed natural. You tricked me, didn't you? Mike barked feebly. Of course, I had told Mike about the inheritance from my deceased husband. Why did the most presumptuous people jump to the most extreme conclusions? I didn't know that. Nobody told me. I never bragged about being wealthy, but I kept stressing that Sam was not a part-timer. It's just that Ally's ears and brain had shut me out. Jen being wealthy? Jen owning a skyscraper? Unforgivable. With some people, you just have to spell it out plainly. I'm sorry someone inferior to Ally, happened to own real estate worth $190 million, living comfortably above you. For some reason, Ally covered her head with her hands and slumped to the floor. She was silent, but tears of frustration overflowed. I walked to the window and gazed outside. Mike, want to see the view? It's quite different from the 5th floor. Take a good look, it's a view you'll never see again in your lifetime. Mike staggered towards me. Then, believe it or not, he wrapped his arm around my shoulder. Sorry. It was all my fault. I just got carried away because Ally seemed like she'd have a lot of money. Think about it. Do you really think I'd fall for someone flashy like Ally? Gross. Disgusting. Mike shifted his gaze to the vast landscape outside the large window, captivated by the view. People look like toys. No, more like trash. I gently placed my hand on Mike's, which rested on my shoulder. Then, Mike grasped my hand, smiling tenderly. Jen, I love you. Mike, I don't love you. Eh? I shook off Mike's hand forcefully. A man who abandons his newlywed wife to cheat is indeed trash. By the way, the divorce papers you unilaterally handed me that day have been filed. So, enjoyed the top floor view? It's time for trash to return to its proper place. With that, Mike froze, his face locked in what was perhaps his most handsome expression to date. And so, Ally and Mike continued to live on the 5th floor of the skyscraper. Mike was always mocking Ally, so of course, they weren't living together in harmony. It was simply that neither of them wanted to back down from claiming, I want to live here. One day, there they were, clearly lying in wait at the entrance of the apartment building. As soon as they saw me, they stumbled over their feet as they rushed over. Jen! I've finally found you! Hey! What is this all about? I knew what the paper they showed me was about, even without looking. What do you mean? It's a rent bill. It's written in English, so you can read it, right? So, why? You. Are you trying to get money from me? Of course I am. Conversely, why would you think you could live here for free? Ally sidled up as I responded calmly. You're so cold. We're family, aren't we? You can kick out this loser, but as family, I have the right to live here for free, right? No, you don't. Have you forgotten what you did? Stealing your sister's husband and destroying a family, and now you talk about family? I don't have a family. Ally murmured weakly, Jen. I was jealous of your happiness, Jen. The truth is, I've been in a lot of trouble. Ally burst into tears. She spoke in a choked voice about how difficult her situation had been. My ex-boyfriend, despite being just a part-timer, paid quite well. I found out he was smart with credit cards. You know? If you use revolving credit, even if you spend $1,000 one month, the next month's payment is only $100. Sounds great, right? But, Ally sniffled, looking frustrated. Before I knew it, I was making purchases for my ex, and once we reached the credit limit, he dumped me. Isn't that sad? I have no money, let me stay in this high-rise apartment. That was the ex-boyfriend she tried to set me up with. So, you were dumped. But don't worry. You have Mike. Probably, your ex and Mike are similar, both utterly worthless. Mike used to say investing was his hobby, but he never shared the details with me, just kept asking about me. But of course, he couldn't say he was blowing most of his salary on horse races. Just because one has money doesn't mean they dress extravagantly. Sam and I didn't waste money and were very plain. I had thought Mike was the same before we got married. I mistook him for a humble and kind person without knowing much about him. When Mike and I were having a rough time, I found an overflow of betting tickets in his pocket and almost passed out. Be happy with Mike, who you took from me. Oh, by the way, the deadline for the rent payment is tomorrow. Don't forget to pay. That's impossible. If it's impossible, then please leave. Although it was a natural response, Ally wailed, but we're family loudly, and Mike clung to my feet, shouting his love, I love Jen. This place wasn't a luxury high-rise, It felt more like a daycare. Disciplining these spoiled children wasn't my responsibility. In the end, Ally and Mike couldn't continue living in the high-rise and had to leave. I moved out too, so I no longer have to worry about being ambushed by them. The top floor of the high-rise was nice, but I felt it just wasn't me. The view is lovely today. I leaned out from the balcony of my second-floor apartment. Before me, the sea stretched as far as the eye could see. Living in the city felt like being swallowed by a sea of dark buildings. Away from the city, I've changed my residence and job, and I've started a new life with a fresh mindset. My neighbors share their vegetables and seafood with me. At work, there's a senior colleague I get along with. Life doesn't necessarily need parents, siblings, or a spouse. I think it's fine to spend time with people you like. I don't need a family, I'm perfectly happy on my own. By the way, Sam also liked the sea. I live a carefree, single life. But inside, there's always the smiling Sam. I'm alone, but I'm not lonely.